be eating some KFC while talking about feelings that KFC brings up in me, which is trauma. Maybe the rustle of this bag will be better. And now that I remember, actually, I wanted to do some soft-spoken talking this time, just because I want to switch it up. I want to see which people prefer. And I've just been told that I have a nice, relaxing voice, which I think is sometimes lost when I just do whispering, because I think everyone's whispering sounds pretty similar, doesn't it? So I'm just going to do some soft-spoken words today. We have our KFC/A&W root beer. And of course our favorite dog who enjoys root beer, Snoopy. Alright. Receipt, very nice. Now I got like the big box combo, whatever it is, I don't know. Because to be honest, I don't think I've ever actually eaten at a KFC other than, like, you know, as a child my parents would bring home the big like chicken pail thing. Like, their actual meals, I don't think I've ever really, you know, delved too far into. Oh, but it looks like we got some chicken. We got a biscuit for some reason. And we have our sides, which I picked mac and cheese and coleslaw. Here's the coleslaw. And I'm really gonna need some sympathy points. Or at least really exercise my trauma. Because coleslaw is actually one of my least favorite foods. And when they asked me what sides I wanted, I was gonna go for the potatoes, but then I was like, wait a second. Potatoes don't really make a sound when you eat them, but coleslaw does. It's very crunchy, so I'm like, okay, we'll do coleslaw. Do it for the channel, do it for the love. But we do have mac and cheese, so that's okay too. Difficult for some reason. And we have our spork. I would like to reiterate that I'm not actually like super weak and struggle with opening plastic wrap. I'm just trying to do this as quietly as possible. But got some mac and cheese. Some stirrage going on. And then I guess we'll give the inaugural bite to the coleslaw. Also, I wanted to make a video today because I had time, you know, I got off work about an hour ago and I forgot to remember, sure, I just forgot that I actually have an interview in 20 minutes, a phone interview. It is 2:10 p.m. It'll be 2:30 when I have my phone interview, so I'm going to have to awkwardly stop this in the middle. I'm pretty excited for that. But anyway, let's get into our chicken here. This is supposed to be crispy chicken, but it's already soggy. I don't know how that happened. I can't wait till after my interview, and it is especially delicious. But anyway, fried chicken from Kentucky Fried Chicken, or maybe Korean Fried Chicken. I guess it'd still be KFC. One of the. Go in and let's check it out. I didn't get like butter or jelly or anything. Do I just eat this with the chicken? Okay. Hopefully there's some crunch there for you. That's good. You know, I'm actually digging the biscuit. I like it so far. But trauma. I think there are three basic sort of traumas, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I would link them into emotional trauma, childhood trauma, and, God, what was the third one I mentioned? Oh yeah, generational trauma. Emotional trauma, I would say, is like anxiety or depression or any kind of something that results from, you know, your mind or your heart, like someone scars you or someone hurts you, or the idea of not feeling like you connect to other people, maybe. And then the idea of childhood trauma would be, you know, childhood is obviously very formative years, the sort of blueprint. Oh God, the KFC's coming back. But the sort of blueprint for your life. Because childhood would be the earliest memories that you have, they will be the most Well, not always the most important, but certainly the ones that begin to form you as a person. So obviously if something traumatic, like say your parents divorce or someone very close to you dies, it's going to affect you the rest of your life, and it will have they do have sort of severe consequences, sort of reverberations throughout one's life, as the feelings that this trauma evokes kind of comes and goes as you develop more as a person. Can you hear the mac and cheese? This is some microwave nonsense, I'll tell you what. And, when we say trauma, I don't always mean it to be super severe. Like the really dark, depressing stuff. It could even be anything from like me just not liking coleslaw, like a bad experience as a kid. And then it just perpetuates throughout your life. You don't always have to jump basically to the darkest conclusions. But I would say the third form of trauma would probably be the generational trauma. And if any of you have ever seen the movie Hereditary by Ari Aster, it's kind of like that. Not like, to this extreme horror movie, haunted family sort of degree. That's just a very, powerful, extreme example of it. But I'm going more for the idea of things that your parents do. I cannot do fast food. Things that your parents do, and I just keep going back for more, don't I? And how they sort of end up affecting your life. For instance, the same old mistakes kind of idea of history being doomed to repeat itself, and if, your parent made this mistake when they were younger, and then they try to prevent their child from making that same mistake, and in their act of trying to prevent it, they maybe even cause it, or maybe this thing was just so intrinsic in your family that it happens regardless. I would say that is a very real thing that I have experienced, even in my family, as well as what I've heard about in other people's families. And is this the breast or the thigh? Or here's a big old chunk of a chicken, I see. Real quick, I have a theory. Those people who have like ASMR eating videos where they eat KFC and it's like still super crispy, they must just make their own their own fried chicken and just put it in KFC or Taco Bell or Burger King wrappers right before they film. Because there's no way that food is still that good before they start doing their video. Like, my KFC is like 5 minutes away, and by the time I got this, it was already like, there's no way that theirs is that crisp after, also like filming for, half an hour or an hour that some videos end up being. Another example of generational trauma, I think. maybe that Elvis Presley song, In the Ghetto. In the Ghetto. That has been, I feel, played everywhere and always made fun of. But it is, kind of a sad and true story about sometimes you are just born, say, into poverty or into a horrible situation. And it's hard for you to escape that because it kind of comes down as a sort of generational issue that you have to break free of yourself because maybe your parent wasn't able to break free. But if you do break free, then your child will be better off for it. But that's kind of the hard part of getting out of the cycle. You know what? I apologize for taking shots at the biscuit earlier. I think the biscuit's my favorite part so far, and there actually is kind of an inherent butteriness to it. So I didn't need butter or jelly after all. Thank you, KFC, for, I guess, having an impressive biscuit. Why not? Savage mode. And I think that we as people often, we do fall victim to our traumas. We do let them overtake us. Whether it's like the everyday emotional trauma of being afraid to deal with people, being afraid of failure, of being in dangerous situations, of anxiety and depression. The sort of pops up whenever it cares about trauma of childhood that may appear randomly, unexpectedly. And the generational trauma that seems like a trap from which you have to escape. It can be easy to succumb to it with all the different pressures coming from all these angles at times. And it is a constant fight to battle against them. And all this reminds me of my artistic tie-in today, which I'll get to after this chicken, and unfortunately after my phone interview I have. Gosh, I wish I would have remembered, but that's okay. We'll finish this chicken off and I'll be good to go. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. There's so much crisp, but so much bone. I think we're done with this guy. Biscuit me. It's a good thing we have Snoopy today, because they actually didn't pack me any napkins either. The only thing that was in there that was extra was the straw and the spork. Strange. I'll take some more sips so I can burp and belch during my interview. I will, of course. Oh, God. Sometimes the burps affect the soft-spoken voice, and I feel like it, I don't know, it fluctuates. But hold on, I guess, with the video, because I will get to some sort of solution. I want to... Oh, Jesus. I want to, going forward, sort of have I'll outline the issue, the topic, the problem. Then I'll make a artistic example, whether a book or a movie or a video game or whatnot. And then I'll apply it to my own life and what I've done to not always transcend the problem, because I'm, just an average guy, average person like you all out there. But just what I do to live through it and get past it, and maybe we can formulate something together. I have another minute or so, who knows. We'll take a bite of mac and cheese. Still not good. Then a bite of coleslaw. Still not good, but loud. All right. God, what a waste of time. I don't know, I can't stand phone interviews, because at least at the company I work for, basically the phone interview is just a vetting of, hey, are you sure you want to apply for this job? And it's yes, that's why I applied. And they just ask basic questions well, what made you interested in this job? As well as what's your work experience? Even though the company already has my work, I'm an existing employee, they already have everything, but whatever. But now that we can go back to trauma, I like to bring up my favorite trauma, Neon Genesis Evangelion. Is my hand wet? Oh my God, from so much condensation now. How do I explain this in 30 seconds? Basically, it's about these kids who pilot giant robots and fight giant monsters. It's a TV show, just one season, but with every episode it becomes less and less about the kids and robots fighting monsters, and more about the psychological issues and ordeals of the kids, and what doing this thing with saving the world, what all of that does to them and affects them. This is the big fancy special edition, whatever, of Evangelion when it came out. So I have Unit 2 on one of them, Unit 0 on one of them, Unit 1 on one of them, and then I have a cutesy little explanation book. And I suppose real quick, because why not? The content, right? I have little Evangelion cards. So this is Shinji, and he'll be the focal point of our discussion. Here we have Rei, Asuka, Masato, Ritsuko, right? I don't know, Dr. Akagi, yeah. Ritsuko Akagi, Kaji, Kaoru, And Shinji's dad. Back to Shinji. But essentially, the show is all about Shinji's mental breakdown. Because he has all of the traumas. He has the emotional trauma of the fact that everyone in the show basically abuses him and bullies him and gaslights him to the end of the world. He has a childhood trauma of his mom died when he was very young and he grew up without a mom. Well, spoiler alert, I guess he kind of didn't, but he grew up without a mom for the most part, and his father is pretty negligent and kind of abandoned him. And then the generational trauma of basically having this sort of chosen one mentality passed down to him. He's kind of just a victim of his father's ways. And the show is just about him trying to transcend his trauma. And whether he does it or not, I guess, is up to the viewer. The show is pretty open-ended and esoteric. But I just think you should all go home and watch Evangelion, because it is an amazing show. Hopefully I don't know how this could deteriorate. It was only like a 15-20 minute interview, so maybe not that long, but But something that I wanted to touch on in regards to Evangelion are the consequences of not dealing with your trauma. Okay, I guess I will have to do a spoiler alert. But what the show does a great job of showing is a more realistic portrayal of what the chosen one's story might look like. Because so often we'll have a hero who is, destined to save the world, and they'll just be like a kid, because it'll be like a young adult or childhood entertainment kind of thing. Or like just maybe like think Harry Potter or something too. And this kid will save the world, and everything will be fine and dandy. And Evangelion is almost like an anti children's hero story, because Shinji eventually sort of succumbs to his trauma, and he succumbs to the pressure and to the abuse. And I guess how I interpret it, and once again, spoiler alert, I think Shinji sort of ends the world, sort of triggers the apocalypse. Because you can kind of tell throughout the show, there's little hints here and there that he doesn't so much care about people anymore. He sort of loses his own humanity in the way that, no one's ever been good to him, so why should he try to save the world anymore? As well as the amount of pain that's on his shoulders from having to carry the weight of the world quite literally on his back. And he pairs excellently with the two other main characters, Rei and Asuka. Asuka especially, because they're all the child pilots who are basically being exploited, by the government, by the world. And she has this other immense trauma. And one little aspect about the way they're able to pilot their robots is it kind of synchronizes with your brain, with your emotional state. And essentially, the stronger you are mentally, the stronger your robot will become. And I guess I had this fan theory that if Asuka and Shinji, who are essentially like foils of each other, well, no, they're mirrors of each other, because they have the same sort of issue, but they approach it in kind of different ways. And both of them never really deal with their trauma, and they both, by the end of the show, had sort of spiraled into madness. And, the world ends because there's no one left to save it, because the people who put it all, the people put it all on these children to save them all, and they couldn't do it because they're just kids, and they were abused kids. And I guess I just have this fan theory that, okay, maybe if Shinji and Asuka were able to go past their trauma, if they were able to connect with each other and maybe develop some sort of connection, then they could have strengthened their willpower, strengthened their synchronization, and they would have saved the world, quite possibly. And I think that's proven more in the Evangelion movie, which is like the finale of the whole thing, when the last moment is just both of them. And there's this touching thing where, well, I guess how touching, it just depends on how you interpret it, but where Asuka touches Shinji's face to like kind of comfort him, and you have to realize that that's the first time in the entire show where anyone has shown Shinji any sign of affection, and it's the first time that Asuka herself has become vulnerable and showed someone else a sign of affection. It's the first time they basically opened up, but at that point it's too late. The world's ended, they're screwed already. And obviously, if you don't deal with your trauma, that's not like the world's going to end like it will in this fictional story. God, I hate this coleslaw. But it might certainly feel like it's ended in your head because, like Shinji, I think you'll only spiral more and more into despair the longer you go, and not dealing with your trauma, and not trying to at least begin the phase of transcending your generational hurt or your childhood hurt or any of that nastiness. I swear, I feel like I've been just devouring this coleslaw, and there's still so much left. Why? Mac and cheese. You ever notice how all obviously pre-made mac and cheese just tastes the exact same, and it's just not good. Can this be a new series, me just in pain from the foods I don't want to eat? Alright, I guess it's just time to talk about my trauma. While I eat a room temperature count, my room temperature, I don't know, slab of chicken. I guess my my trauma, or at least the trauma that I'm willing to talk about on here, would just be that I had like a very lonely childhood. Like barely left the house if I wasn't going to school. Didn't really have friends till like a sophomore year of high school kind of. And I know that may sound insulting to say people who didn't even develop friends then. There's always going to be someone out there who's, probably had it worse than you, and I fully admit that. And I guess I always felt that I was, distanced, not even just physically, but mentally from other people too. Like I always was interested in different things. I thought about different things. Oh my God, how do I even eat this? But it's so hard to find people who were interested in the same things I was, or who had the same ideas I had. And I found a lot of times I was always perceived as the pariah or the outcast. And a lot of times outcasts will make their own outcast group. That will hide in the corner of the library or something. I didn't even have that. I was an outcast of the outcasts. Well, that's fine, I guess. I don't really care about it anymore. And that's the point. Because I realized that, depression and bipolar disorder and all that, all the anxiety, all the good stuff, was something that, not only me, but, my parents have also, struggled with and been through. And maybe it just is a sort of generational curse that has been passed down, a little, daily fun you don't have to deal with. But then I just kind of realized that, who cares? Embrace it. Love it. Make your trauma interesting. Better to be interesting than to be boring, right? And I don't mean like those people on TikTok who brag about, mental illness, or try to one-up each other on their sort of God, I probably can't even say it on here, but you know what I'm talking about. Because I just ripped this chicken to shreds. I'm not saying be like that, but just own it, accept it. Don't let it control your life. And don't let it stop you from doing what you want to do. If you want to write a book, write a book. If you want to paint a painting, paint a painting. If you want to become a rocket scientist, and find the right schools that need rocket scientists, science tree, whatever. You go there. If you don't go there, go to a different one. Just don't let anyone stop you from being you. And don't let anyone, especially yourself, try to scare you into inaction and use your trauma as an excuse. Oh, you can't do this because your mom died when you were young. Or you can't do this because you're fighting in this giant robot, fighting evil monsters trying to take over the earth. Like Shinji. Just do your own thing. God, I feel like a monster. Shinji should fight me. even looking at anymore. I quit. But we have the biscuit. And I feel that this actually goes to my other videos. My sort of my first video, my nihilism video about objectivism as well, and cosmicism, and my stoicism video that just came out recently. Because all of them are just about, you know, owning up to whatever reality you have, whatever reality you've been given, accepting hardship and just kind of trucking through it, tanking through it, not letting it get you down. And then just the idea of, okay, maybe you have the trauma, which, you know, I'm not trying to diminish and invalidate whatsoever. But, you know, I guess that's just the way it happened. That's the way the world works. Everyone has had some sort of horrible thing happen to them, you know, at least at some point. And it's just, you know, maybe the fatalist in me is saying the cosmicist, but these things just happen and there's no way to really stop them. And because there's no way to stop them, why fret about it? You know, just accept it. And I guess now, whether I can say this or not, who cares? But with like other trauma that I've had that I obviously can't say on here, there's a bit of a positive glimmer in it, because when anytime anything else bad happens in my life or is about to happen, or maybe a stressful event is on the horizon, I just think to myself, hey, you know, no one can do anything to me that hasn't already been done before. No, nothing bad can happen to me now that it wasn't as bad as this other thing. And then it just becomes a sort of rock in your past. You know how sometimes people say, oh, you're my rock because you're my support. Well, in this way, at least to me, it's a sort of negative support of like negative repelling energy of, yes, this is a bad thing, but this one bad thing prevents other bad things from happening. Like, you know, they bounce off the sheen of this evil traumatic shield. I don't know, I'm probably just, you know, deranged as well. But if I was deranged, could I drink root beer? That's the question. Anyway, all I have are fried chicken shreds left, so I'm just going to call it quits right now. We've pretty much discussed everything I want to talk about. So without any further ado, this has been M. Price Can Eat, a subsidiary company of M. Price Can Read. I am, of course, your host, M. Price, and as you know, Dog City never sleeps. I hope that you may sleep, and that your traumas may either be healed or at least ameliorated in some sense now.